So hello everybody, my name is Anna Ramonch. I'm a medical doctor and come from Antonis Trsteniak Institute of Gerontology and Intergenerational Relations in Slovenia, where we coordinate age-friendly cities and communities network of Slovenia. And today I will be chairing a symposium titled Changing Communities, from age-friendly environments dream to concrete participative implementation. And with that, I would like to introduce our first speaker, Thibauld MOULAERT. He will be presenting symposium framework. But before we go to that, let me tell you something about Thibauld. He's associate professor at the University Grenoble-Alpes, CNRS, Science PO Grenoble, School of Political Studies, Pacte Social Science Laboratory, in charge of a bachelor in gerontology. He's also co-responsible of the Research Committee on Aging at the French Association of Sociology, member of the boards of Gérontologie et Société, member of the board REACTIS Network, and he also co-published or published, edited 7 books, and is the author of 51 articles. And he's very familiar with the subject of age-friendly cities and communities. So I'm passing the word to you, Thibauld.
So thank you, Anna, for introduction. So here is the general menu of the symposium. First, I will explain you how I dream, again, with STEFANI model. Then we will see how it has been adapted to the Interreg funding aspect. And then we will present some aspects, general way of the project, and then some international promise. So as the first step, I would say, the project came from the dream about age-friendly city and community, because I really said age-friendly cities is a dream because it's a very interesting, large and rising global program inspired and produced originally by the World Health Organization in 2007. Now it is really worldwide developed. There are plenty of cities using it, adapting it, etc. On the scientific literature, there is also rising interest for this perspective. Researchers are interested in how the place and environments can play a role in public policies, how participation can be a deep aspect of this process, or also how international comparison, let's say, can have something to say. But this international aspect is probably the less developed in this perspective. However, when you talk to local players, to stakeholders, municipality, association, local players, all the people on the field, well, sometimes they don't understand really what to do with this age-friendly city. So that's the reason with the call, I received a call from the Treviso city, and they came with this idea. They were very interested by what you see here on the left, which are all the age-friendly cities and communities program, the age-friendly environment by the World Health Organization. It's a very complex one. It's a very nice one, but very complex one. For 5 years, 4 steps, you should pass through 8 domains. So very interesting, but very complex. And so with the Anton Trenčka Institute of Gerontology and Intergenerational Relations in Ljubljana, Slovenia, and me in the University of Grenoble, we decided to make a more concrete project. So it's here on the right. It's a more concrete, more step-by-step project. And now I would like to show you what we put in it. Our ideal, our dream with this STEFANI project is, well, first here it's really important is the trio. So for each partners in the 5 case study, which are one in Austria, one in France, one in Germany, one in Italy, and one in Slovenia, we ask, well, even if they were very conscious about the heterogenicities, if they have a long knowledge of it, or if they have no knowledge, we ask them to start on the same level. So we asked them to create a trio. So the trio was one older person, one administrative employee, and one methodological facilitator. And that was really the core, so the motor of the project. Then after this trio, we asked them to, well, create a local action group with different partner concern, and depending of the priority they choose together. So that's the participation aspect. So participation is very concrete, and it means make all the people participate at all steps during all the time, and at the different level of action. So that was really since the beginning, and we really keep it hard during all the process. Second, it's this idea of concreteness. The concreteness was really at every steps. I would give you an example. Well, when we meet the stakeholders in international meeting, or when the trio meet their local players, for example, we gave them some booklets, and in one of the booklets, the idea was not asking them what is an age-friendly city for you, but what makes your city, your community, a nice place to age. So very basic question, very simple but very concrete. And the third aspect is this idea of regularity. This regularity is that all the methodological facilitators, sorry, we met them more or less every 10 days, which is really quite often. So therefore, there was a regularity, and they knew that they will receive information from us, concrete information. For example, and that was at the end of the project, and it also make the project original. If you see here below, the last step after the establishment of trio, the need assessment, choice of priorities, co-planning, co-implementation, we help them and we ask them to make a celebration of the action done so far. And so we give them some advice how to make this celebration. So the last aspect is this international promise. Probably for me, it's the best lesson, maybe not the easiest, but the best lesson. Here on the right, you can see a workshop, an international workshop with all the members of the project. That was at the beginning, it was in present, no COVID yet. Then after it passed into COVID. But thanks to the regularity, to the concreteness of the project, it was, well, somehow easier to make it at a distance, just as what we are doing right now. But that was only one aspect of this international promise. So the way that we could share and share our knowledge all together locally, but on a regular basis, so 5 times during 2 years, 2.5 years project. But even more interesting was the methodological facilitator. You can see we met them more than 30 times, so nearly every 10 days. And there, that was really the place where, and that's the key issue according to me, this negotiation took place. The negotiation took place at every level, inside the trio, in the local action group, between methodological facilitators, in international workshop. So between us, between the stakeholders at local level. So a negotiation was really an essential issue. We really saw it all the time, and you will see it in the next presentation, probably. So to finish, I would say, and as I said, it is a very concrete project as well. So even if it's finished by the end of June, you can see plenty of documents on the website, and here you can see the website on alpinespace.org. You will see an analytical report if you are more interested by research, but you also have a traffic toolkit and methodological booklets for very, very pragmatic action. If you want to see where it happens, you will see the model implementation in the 5 space. a manual for municipality, which are also very pragmatic, and of course, a strategy. All these different elements will be more developed in the next presentation right now. So thank you for listening, and I'm happy to listen to the other members. Thank you.
Thank you for this very nice speech, Thibauld. And now we'll pass the word to the next speaker. This is Marta GRCAR, and she will present TAFE model from social research and theory to practice. But again, before that, let me shortly present Marta. She graduated from social pedagogy at Faculty of Educational Science, Salesian Pontifical University, Rome. She works at the Anton Tersteniak Institute of Gerontology and Intergenerational Relations, doing practical field work with elderly and communities, as well as research work. She's one of the coordinators of the Slovenian network of age-friendly communities, responsible for methodology development and co-author of the manual towards an age-friendly community. Please, Marta.
In this presentation, we will explore 3 key factors to successful deployment of the TAFE model as identified by the authors of the model and trainers of its implementation. Critical reflection was made based on the minutes of more than 35 methodology for the facilitators meetings and 5 transnational workshops, evaluation questionnaires, and fieldwork notes from all pilot sites in the project that lasted 2.5 years. So what were those 3 key factors? First, participative involvement of and cooperation between older people, administrative staff, and scholars, facilitators was essential, and it happened through negotiation. Second, due to concrete action, participants saw the usefulness of the model and built the trust in the methodology. And the third, regular trainings enable facilitators practical understanding of the process and gave constant support, which reflected in their work in the local community. International cooperation reinforced the process. So looking at the first key factor, key words are participative involvement and negotiation. In membership requirements of the global network of age-friendly cities and communities, it is written, creating an age-friendly city or community requires collaboration and coordination across sectors and with diverse stakeholders. One of the essential conditions towards creating age-friendly cities and communities is the meaningful involvement of older people at all stages. This principle brings many challenges, such as who should be those diverse stakeholders, how to make them participate, that is to say, how to achieve meaningful or real participation. So regarding who, in TAFE model, we identified 3 key players. First, older people themselves. Nothing new, nevertheless challenging in the practice. Second, administration employee. The implementation of the TAFE model showed that it is important that municipality assign a person dedicated to the implementation of the age-friendly process. This person's active involvement is an important factor of success or non-success. While importance of policy commitment is constantly mentioned in age-friendly environment discourse, it is often underestimated that it is responsibility of the administration office to carry out day-to-day organizational tasks. Third key player is methodological facilitator. We set up a hypothesis that to enable successful participation, mediator with knowledge and skills to avoid the confusion, conflicts, misunderstanding, and disappointment is needed. On-site visits showed clearly that methodological facilitator in pilots were not only precious, but necessary resource. Those 3 roles were in the TAFE model institutionalized in organization structure called TRIO and local action group, as we heard before by Thibauld. It was careful trio member selection and regularity of their meetings that enabled trios to be real organizer and a motor in all the phases of the TAFE process. Coming back to World Health Organization definition, that's how meaningful participation happens, not just of older people, but also of a trio as a whole. Similar goes for the local action group. Saying that, we come to the last key word of this point, negotiation. In trio, as well as in local action group, already because of their role, people had different conceptions and expectation, which made it necessary to negotiate. We could say that this is the biggest difficulty and the biggest advantage at the same time. So let's go to the second key factor of successful deployment of the model. The keywords here would be building trust in methodology. A very common challenge encountered in practice in local community is distrust. In TAFE implementation, for example, in one pilot site happened that older people were distrustful towards authorities and their ability to really listen to them. In other case, administration office was distrustful towards European project and sustainability of age-friendly environment, assuming it's too abstract and far from reality. Analysis of feedbacks, on the other hand, showed that trust is one of the main driving forces of successful implementation of the model. It's safe to say that even if the model would propose the most efficient structure and procedure, its success would depend on whether participants would build trust or not. So let's look at what were few methodological components that helped participants to build trust and how the issue of trust influenced the implementation. Identified components were definitely good atmosphere, positive transfer that happened between authors of the model and among participants, insisting on personal approach on different levels, clearly communicated structure of the model presented in simple and repetitive way, and regular meetings. Furthermore, trust was linked to the concreteness that could be defined also as visibility. When small evaluation was made with the trio members, asking them for challenges and good practices of their work, all members mentioned that it was important to be efficient and concrete, to see that things are moving forward, to see that the decisions are taken and agreements respected. Trio met regularly tracking results of their small but significant actions that made them proud and enthusiastic. Trust spread among trio members and from trio to local action group and community. A very interesting dynamic happened at that point. Moved by the trust, participants were encouraged to take further actions, which in a circular way strengthened the trust. And here we come to the last point for successful deployment of the model, which is regular training and international cooperation. So that last point, though maybe the most determinant for successful deployment of the model, is an importance and effect of the regular, systematic, and methodologically well-prepared training. In the age-friendly environment discourse, there is a big shortage on the subject. There are many descriptions on what and how should be done, but almost nothing on how to prepare participants to be able to do it. We all know that you cannot learn to swim reading the book, nor is the method throw person in the water and they will swim broadly used, because we know that yes, person would learn to swim or person would drown. In age-friendly environments, it's often acted like that. Practice is often done as if abilities could be learned by simply reading about them or learning as you go. So based on the TAFE model author's previous experiences and theoretical knowledge, the training was created with a double aim. First, to provide knowledge and necessary skills to implement TAFE model at the local level, and second, to build a learning community between methodological facilitators and trio members. Both aims showed to be significant factors for successful deployment of the model. While the importance of the first aim was almost self-evident, the second one showed to be of a great value, especially in the time of crisis during COVID-19 epidemic, since it helped to resolve the unexpected challenges that emerged due to the situation. Let's see more concretely what INTAF experience showed to be the crucial elements of the training. First, the general methodological perspective always addresses both theoretical and practical exercise together. Second, of great importance is the process, not to give all knowledge at once and wait for the stakeholders to implement everything, but on the contrary, to give knowledge one step at a time and then offer sufficient time for adaptation of the content to local reality and then its implementation. Then the fourth important component of the training is in-depth regular reflection and experience sharing. For that part, in-group social learning method developed by Anton Trsteňák Institute was used. The method helped to translate the theory into practice, enabling participants to learn from moderated experience of each other. And the fourth, last component of training is combination of peer support and adequate professional support. So just a word about international cooperation, reinforcing the process. As mentioned in the previous speech, the discourse was universal, but the international component evidently increased the motivation of the participants and brought new ideas to the learning community pool. And now to conclude, based on our analysis, successful deployment of the successful implementation of the TAFE model depended highly on participation, negotiation, trust in the methodology, and training. Despite the limitations, we hope to bring these key points into the discussion that will help to bring the dream of age-friendly environments closer to its realization. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you for your speech, Marta. And with that, we're moving to our third speaker, Adele de STEFANI. She will be speaking about TAFE as one model with 5 different national implementations. Adele de STEFANI is an anthropologist specializing in medical anthropology. She holds a PhD in intercultural humanistic studies. She works in Institute for Seniors Care and Retirement ISRA, where she's responsible for the implementation of projects that adopt innovative approaches to health, care, and social inclusion of older adults, developing age-friendly environments and counteracting ageism. The floor is yours, Adele.
Thank you, Anna, for your punctual presentation. So the implementation of participation as conceived in the TAFE model reveal 3 factors as particularly significant in all 5 pilot sites. First of all, the necessity to find a balance between discussion and concreteness. Secondly, the voluntary dimension of participation. And finally, the request for recognition. With this contribution, I try to analyze the characteristics and specificities that these factors have taken locally, with a special eye to senior citizens participating in the local action group and in the trio. By so doing, I will try to evidence how such factors often call into question the role of the public authority and the community's representation and expectation towards it. So, the TAFE participatory framework requires several moments devoted to discussion along the process. And it's fair to say that more or less in all 5 pilot sites, a large amount of time dedicated to discussion sometimes has appeared a little bit challenging, and the request to see some kind of concreteness arose quite often, especially from seniors. But why discussion appeared so challenging? In contexts where there was a lack of familiarity on the part of citizens with the participatory practices, for example, because they have never been adopted by the public authorities or institutions to create a dialogue with community, we saw that the discussion may cause a little bit of disorientation and a consequent more frequent demand for facts, for tangible action as a means to clarify the path started. In such cases, sometimes is the scope of the discussion that is not completely understood from the beginning. And this is not surprising considering the fact that TAFE methods as first step ask a participant to find a priority on which to focus the work at the local level. Therefore, the precise object of the work can be not so immediate to be understood, to be reached from the very beginning. On the other hand, we see that a lack of familiarity makes it difficult for participants to understand what kind of contribution is expected from them and why they are called to discuss, to give their point of view, why they are asked about what they think, and why they have to discuss several times on the similar or on the same issues and wait a long time before making decisions and taking actions. This difficulty in grasping the purpose of the discussion and the need for concreteness highlight the complexity of conveying the method, the practices of participation in working with citizens, such as discussing in group, confronting each other, ask questions each other, letting everyone speak, and so on. And but at the end of the day, what also seems to be a little bit challenging is the reversal of paradigm that participation wants to bring, namely giving an active role and a responsible role to senior citizens in decision-making and planning. This change of perspective that consists in making seniors not just passive users, but builders, takes time and can lead to disorientation among participants, both with regards to the ultimate aim of the process itself, but also with regard to the role they are asked to play within the process. In other cases, we have observed an oscillation between the conviction that the discussion is just an example of the public authority launching initiative that then led to nothing concrete, so that are just a strategy to get visibility, and on the other hand, the belief that the discussion is a sort of staging, that is tokenism. The public authority already knows what wants to do and is only pretending to involve citizens in decision-making and in planning through discussion. In this second case, the repeated discussion is perceived as a sort of evidence of both this assumption, while the request for concreteness is something like a way to challenge, a way to test such conviction in order to see if they are correct or not. This kind of position has been observed especially in contexts where the intentionality of the public authorities tends to be interpreted as a little bit opaque, or where its reliability is put under doubt. And this brings to the second factor, that is voluntariness underlying the participation of senior citizens and of the other components of the local action group in the TAFE model. We have seen that voluntariness can be interpreted and experienced in different ways. In some cases, asking senior citizens and organizations to participate in a voluntary manner has been interpreted as a strategy of the public authority to delegate its responsibilities to the community and the third sector in what we can define an opportunistic manner. Asking for voluntary participation is therefore a form of delegation and exploitation. This positioning, this kind of initial way to look at the request of participate has been observed especially in social contexts where the rhetoric of the scarcity of public resources and the role of the third sector in making up for its deficiencies are spread and prevalent in the public discourse and in the collective imaginary. On the other hand, we have seen that voluntary participation is on the contrary, can be on the contrary strictly linked to the trust that citizens and stakeholders place in public authority. In these cases, when the positioning of the municipalities along the participatory process has been swinging, a little bit changing, the voluntary participation of citizens has also been subject to changes and oscillation. On the contrary, where the presence of the public party has shown solid and its representatives have played a very active and positive role during engagement, and participation resulted more constant and more smooth. This example tells us a lot about how the public interlocutor play an important role in influencing both the presence and the positioning that stakeholders and citizens, of course, assume in participatory process. Finally, it was observed how public authorities' recognition of what has been implemented is a crucial factor within a participatory process, as in the case of TAFE. The request for recognition can manifest itself at different levels and degrees, sometimes intersecting each other. It can be a recognition intended as a tangible contribution in the form of resources and infrastructure. It can be intended as recognition through action of information and dissemination in the community. Therefore, the public authorities is expected to act as a sounding board of what has been done to the community, in the community. But also it can be intended in the form of symbolic moments of celebration that are precious to give visibility to what has been realized, to the results that have been achieved, and their relevance for the community. So to highlight the great commitment made by those who took part in the process, for example, trio components, all, especially local action group components and seniors. Recognition by the public authorities in its various expressions responds at the end of the day to the need to see what has been done legitimized, to see the services and the activities implemented embedded into a horizon of sense that is collective, that belongs to the community as a whole. So the symbolic role of the public authority, the institution, let's say, of the power in this legitimization is key, and is key in this sense when we talk about recognition of what has been done locally. So to conclude, the framework that has been outlined leads to note how the implementation of the participatory model requires continuous and multi-level negotiation. And why it is multi-level? Because it has to do with the relationship between public authorities and citizens, with representation and expectation that are closely and very slickly embedded in the specificities and the peculiarities of the social context of the local fabric, and on how power is and government is concretized in the local place, in the local context where the participatory model is started. Balance between decision and concreteness, voluntariness, and the need for recognition are constituent and constant elements in a participatory process. They are not placed, exhausted, and resolved at the beginning or at the end of it, but they pertain to all its different phases. This allows to say that negotiation is something more than being a strategy to be adopted. It's a posture, it's a positioning that those who guide the participatory process must keep if they want to guarantee trust, if they want to guarantee commitment and engagement, which have transversally proved to be the essential constituents of participation. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you for these words, Adele. And now we're moving to our last speaker. Martina LINDORFER will tell us about scaling up age-friendly co-created innovations. Martina holds a degree in international development from University of Vienna and is employed as project manager and researcher at the Institute for Social Innovation since 2008. She was involved in numerous international research projects, mainly focusing on science, technology, and society issues. Currently, she is engaged in the unit Work and Equal Opportunities and works on projects dealing with dynamics and dimensions of inequalities, inclusion of vulnerable groups, social policy, digitalization, and future of work. The floor is yours, Martina.
So thank you, Anna, and thank you everybody else. So I think we have heard already a lot about the TAFE model and how it is implemented in the different local cases in the 5 countries. The question now is how can we reach sustainability for the model, and how could we scale it up to be applied also in different and wider geographical and political contexts. Because of course it is one thing to implement the model in very specific local pilot sites, let's say, but it's already of course more difficult to bring that to another level, right? And that's what we as STEFANI are trying by, we are now developing a strategy for age friendliness in the Alpine space. And the strategy has the title of sustainability and upscaling actually of the TAFE model. So the ambition is of course to making methods and co-created services that advance the development of age friendly environments accessible to a broader community and or new groups in society. Of course, upscaling is not a linear, but rather a circular, adaptive or evolutionary process, which is shaped by the institutional, cultural and normative environment innovations are embedded in. But I think nevertheless, throughout the last years and in the implementation of the model in different national contexts, we could draw certain conclusions and lessons learned that really help us to build on a strategy that kind of guides the ways how it can be implemented also in other contexts. So what we did so far is to make kind of a SWOT analysis of the models that we have implemented to see what were the strengths, the challenges, the opportunities, the threats. I will quickly summarize it for you. Some parts of it is kind of you have already learned before. But nevertheless, so we say that we see the strength of the model is on the one hand this very broad stakeholder dialogue that recognizes diversity of the age-friendly environments, and I think we really have to put an emphasis on the diversity of the topic itself and also the diversity of the group of all the citizens, of course, and really pay attention to that. And on the basis of this stakeholder dialogue, it will be possible then to develop also new structures for age-friendly environments. We have seen also that this participatory approach that we took really empowered the target persons in our regions. And as we said before, it builds trust and transparency throughout the process. And that I think are really important prerequisites if you want to build something sustainable and scalable, of course. And what was also very valuable was the peer learning process with the municipalities. We have seen in all the cases that municipalities and the stakeholders, they learned a lot in the process, and of course they are going to be then again let's say role models or multipliers to bring that learnings to other municipalities. And as Thibauld also said, we had this continuous reflection process. So that was very valuable as well. So after every step, there was a reflection process, and so that the model and the methodology could really grow. And we see already now that we have already reached sustainability, because all the pilots that we implemented, they are going to continue even if the project now ends in June. Just to take the example of Italy, there they already have negotiations with neighboring municipalities who want to implement parts of the model as well in their municipality and adapt it for their needs. And it really gave us the opportunity to create power through new synergies. Exactly. There are, of course, remaining challenges. We have seen those challenges throughout all the pilot sites. There's still unstable and fragmented collaboration between policy level sectors and stakeholders. We see that all the citizens are still not sufficiently represented in decision-making processes, and the digital gap was actually a big issue. We of course see that there's still very unequal access to information, especially when we're talking about all the citizens. And one very critical point is also the inclusion or reactivation of the so-called hard-to-reach seniors, meaning the ones that live, for example, in isolations, that are harder to reach out to. And those group, of course, is in a more aggravated situation now in the pandemic. So the ones that were already left behind before are, of course, now even harder to reach. So it's a big challenge how to include those people as well. I will very roughly just mention the opportunities. I think there is a certain window of opportunity now to really go forward, because we are living in a time where the silver economy is having importance economically, where due to the demographic change, we know we need a new organization of care and well-aging, and there are already growing certain local initiatives like the caring communities that are able to try out new innovative ways of doing social inclusion and so on. So I think there is a window of opportunities that we can build upon. So for the strategies, we have now detected some fields of actions for advancing in age friendliness, and I will really just very, very briefly touch upon them due to time constraints. So what we have seen, that one big issue is engagement through communication, networking, and dialogue. That may seem trivial, but we have really seen that communication is a key issue. It's about sensitizing people, informing, discussing, educating, and on the one hand, citizens, but also, of course, policy stakeholders, and sensitizing on the one hand on age-friendly environments, also on the benefits of participatory structures, but also informing and raising awareness on new images of aging. And that again plays into this diversity issue, because aging is such a diverse topic, and all the citizens are such a diverse group of people, and it's really important to also communicate this diversity in a broader sense, and then establish resilient communication formats that bring sustainability forward. We need better coordination between service providers, and we think that our dialogue-oriented approach suits very well for that, because it combines speaking to existing structures and institutions, and then also bringing along new allies for bringing forward also social innovations. Then there is the point of integrated top-down and bottom-up approaches, as we call it. So, as I said earlier, enabling participation also through representation of older people, with a strong involvement of municipalities and co-creation methods. Then there's this big topic of digitalization for social inclusion, and that's of course a huge topic. Just to name now one point, we have seen that administrative personnel must really be better aligned, must better align services with the needs of seniors, for example, through participatory design and co-creation of services. So that's a big, of course, a big tool that we can use. And then, of course, the issue of funding, because until now, we often see this very short-term project-based funding of all initiatives. And we think that through the tool of communication, as I said earlier, if we can create visibility for the results that we achieve through our participatory structures, that can help also to achieve longer-term funding for methods and tools for age-friendly environments. That was, of course, now a very quick drive through some action fields. The strategy that we are developing will be ready in June and will be then, of course, distributed. So far from my side, thank you everybody, and I'm now very curious to hear the discussion and your comments. Thank you.
With that, I would like to thank our last speaker. Thank you, Martina, for this wonderful presentation. And now we have 12 minutes for questions and answers. So let's start the discussion.
Well, I'll be brief. There is a lot to say, but we have not time enough to go through everything. So sorry for my summing up. Then going to Germany, we saw that communication and awareness raising on the topic of age friendliness and more generally on the seniors, and senior support was very important. So many events, many presentations, and many activities were developed around this topic. Coming then to Italy and France, we can say that...
Just to disturb you a little bit, it was city of Mössingen, if I remember correctly, with the Germany. Right?
Definitely, yeah.
And in Italy it was Treviso. So what
in Italy was Treviso, and in France was Marseille. And what we saw both in Italy and France is that the theme of digitalization of public services, but on the other hand, the process of dematerialization of daily life were central for seniors. So we worked in different ways in Italy with an intergenerational support and approach, and in France with voluntary support in order to give all the people the possibility to assess and use properly these services. And finally, we have Slovenia, where a norm for senior was built, and what has been done in this case was a very big work in order to create a relation, create a sort of open approach between the home for senior and the community in order to avoid making it silos with no communication and with no interaction with the whole community that is outside the home for seniors. I know this is a very brief overview, but the time is not a lot, so I will let the floor to the others.
Thank you, Adele. Maybe someone else wants to add something to this concrete action. So what happened in all these 5 pilots that you heard about? So we had the city of Mössingen, we had Treviso, there was city of Giry, municipality of Giry, Marseille, and in Austria we had, Martina, help me a little bit with the name.
It's called Feldbach in Styria, in the south of Austria.
Thank you. So what was interesting that all the pilots managed to chose the priorities as part of the model and then concretely implement this action. So that's what Adele took us through a little bit. And maybe another question that popped out was also about the model itself. As you know, the program of age-friendly cities and communities already proposes a cycle of continuous improvement. And the question is, what is new and different about this TAFE cycle, and why did you choose these things, or why were they important? Maybe Thibauld and Marta, you were mainly in charge of developing the model, and Thibauld, you're very familiar with the model itself from before. If you can summarize.
Just one or two very short points, so that everybody really understands it. Compared to a four-year cycle, which is a long time with political change that may happen, locally, a mayor that can be elected or new. Here with the Interreg funding, it was a constraint at the beginning, but in fact, it was a push factor to make it more concrete. And for that reason, we consider that it was not easy to have the agreement of the mayor at the beginning of the process. So we asked it not to have it at the beginning, but in the end, it could happen. So at the moment now, maybe there are some cities that will join the global network on the age-friendly city with the mayor, which is no, but we didn't want to ask it, not too much pressure on people. A second part, and it concerns Marseille case. In Marseille case, they worked with very poor, very excluded people. So it means that this process could be applied to a diversity of older people, the hard to reach, as it is sometimes called. So this process was also very concrete and could be adapted to different kind of population, which I think is very important. And that's all for me.
Okay, thank you, Thibauld, for this introduction. I can continue from there, maybe just to mention, I think there are three main differences. The first one was the trio and the local action group selection. We really took quite a lot of time to choose the right people, and which is not self-evident because we said, okay, older people should be included, but we really talked to, let's say, which older people, because is this older people representation? There are always in municipality lots of organizations, lots of older people, so who to select to be really part of the process? Then also from the part of municipality, who to select that will be really involved, that will have influence in the municipalities on one hand and will have a time on the other. So these are just few parameters that we discussed. We also worked on worksheets to help pilots to choose the right people. So this is about this trio local action group selection. The second one was already broadly mentioned before by Adele, and also in presentation, was this priority choosing. It is not mentioned in World Health Organization cycle that you have to choose priority. It's just planning in general, but we decide for this priority. And the very last one is maybe the celebration. It's not our innovation. It's already some of the other cities are practicing it. But again, it's not official in this official 4-step cycle. So yes, that's the third main difference. I think maybe all the others you can also add something, Thibauld, if I forgot anything.
No, of course. Well, I would have appreciated to have question already, but it seems to be technically impossible. So, well, also if in the audience want to ask us any question later, I mean, you can just send us email as well.
Yes, thank you, Thibauld and Marta, for this pointing out these differences, and also Thibauld for again encouraging people to, because it's a little bit due to technical reasons hard to communicate directly. If you have any questions, you're always welcome to write any of us. And maybe another question, since we still have some minutes left. It's about the sustainability, because often what happens is as the project ends, as you all know, I guess majority of participants here knows or have experience with that, also the action cease. So how is that with this TAFE project, and more important than the project itself, about the actions? So what will happen to the actions that started? How is it going to continue? Is it going to end? Maybe Martina, you work the most on sustainability issue. How do you feel about the happening in different environments?
Yes, sure. For my understanding, the TAFE project was quite successful in terms of sustainability, which is actually seldom for a project of this. But just to give maybe two examples, to start with the Italian case, after the project ends now, the municipality actually intends to give continuity to the actions. They will keep the trio alive, for example, and they also will, the municipality obtain funding from the region to also start similar initiatives together with neighboring municipalities, which showed interest in the model. So that's a very nice impact that the project had. Also in the German case, for example, they have now a permanent job creation employee who is now employed to keep the actions alive, to keep the trio alive, to keep the initiative alive, to have some kind of a seniors representative in the region. So there are very concrete examples how sustainability was reached in different regions, and I think that was quite a success. And also in terms of upscaling, you can see it, for example, in the Italian case, that also other municipalities, neighboring municipalities, got interested in the model, and they are now in communication to start similar processes in neighboring municipalities.
Thank you, Martina, for that. Maybe since Thibauld and Marta, you were directly involved also in the French and Slovenian pilot in regards to sustainability there, how do you see these two cases, what's going to continue?
Maybe if I can say, if there is a motivation, and I mean, if the project is only supported by the city, for example, I think the sustainability will not be so long. So the interest is when it is supported by the city, by the administration itself, and by seniors. And I think that the Treviso case is a very good case because there are these three elements which are on boards. So I would say that.
Regarding to this classification just mentioned in GRI in Slovenia, yes, the older people are very enthusiastic to continue. So the trio will, as a structure, will continue. Also, municipality is, let's say, a bit divided because right now there are big changes in municipality. So part of municipality is very enthusiastic to continue, but the problem is that right now the people are changing. The mayor will change because there are elections. So right now we'll see how to proceed, but we're still working on the sustainability. And right now it looks like quite good. Then you can ask us in 1 year time how it went. We'll be happy to answer.
Well, thank you for that. Oh, Martina, go on, yes.
No, I just wanted to comment, it's always a little bit tricky when you work with administrative staff, that there is a lot of change in personnel, and that always is the major challenge, I would say, to keep such a process running and to keep the sustainability somehow.
And one more thing.
Sorry, Anna. Yeah, I think it's really nice thing of discussion, because also we'll do at the end analytical report, and there we also analyzed a bit of that. So we touch this change of personnel and how it influenced, and also we reflected a bit on some prevention of this, how it can go on even though the people are changing, because also during the project a lot of people changed within, or methodological facilitator change, or administration staff changed. So also on that, it was quite interesting reflection. So if you like to hear more, you can also read analytical report or other documents of the project.
Yeah, and please follow our articles. And if someone wants to write us, here are our mails. You will also find them in the presentation itself. And that's it for today. So thank you.